The release of the Chainsaw Man anime has put a lot of things into perspective for me that I just never realized before. It's allowing me to essentially see information from a different angle, like with this scene.
一番謎なのが、あのマキマさんがデンジ君を気にかけてること。デンジ君の秘密を知ってるからなのかも。
This single, almost irrelevant piece of information from a character who dies shortly after leads to the reveal of probably the smartest character in the entire Chainsaw Man series, Captain Kishibe. I'd go as far to say that Kishibe was about the only person who could rival Makima's intelligence. For every problem that occurred after his introduction, he seemed to have a solution. Like, even Captain Kishibe would tell you that every like and comment helps to push this video through YouTube's algorithm, so that it can get as many eyes on it as possible. He'd even tell you that if you enjoyed the video, it'd be extremely nice of you to like and subscribe. Pretty nice segue, right? Completely out of character for Kishibe, but let's continue from the beginning. You'd think that would be Kishibe's actual introduction, but it's not. Even before he was officially introduced, we had met him, specifically in Himeno's flashbacks. From her flashbacks, we find out pretty early on that Kishibe is her teacher or master. Technically her teacher, but Kishibe is kind of weird and likes going by master. The interesting part about this is that Himeno is the first character to specifically express any distrust when it comes towards Makima. After the scene where we find out that Himeno has a crush on Aki and doesn't particularly like Makima, we can just assume that her distrust of Makima is directly a result of jealousy. But oh no. It's so much more than that, and it leads right back to Kishibe. At this point, let me go ahead and throw out that spoiler warning for anime onlys, because at this point, we're going to delve way past what the anime has covered. If you aren't interested in spoilers, this would be the time to click off, and maybe I'll catch you in the future. Our official introduction to Kishibe comes within the Katana Man arc, specifically with Makima requesting that he trains Denji in power. In this intro, he asks the two of them the following questions, all of them in an attempt to gauge Denji and Power's sanity, as he measures one's ability to be a great devil hunter by their sanity, or better stated, lack thereof. He begins their training and immediately Fujimoto gets to work on showing us how knowledgeable he is, immediately incapacitating the pair by breaking their necks, following up with telling them that their muscle and skeletal structures are the same as humans. Within this training montage, Kishibe is able to show just how resourceful he is, even if he is drinking. But nothing less should be expected from the one who is the strongest devil hunter. Given experience through time and action, Kishibe has had his fair share of devil encounters, and as we'll come to know in a bit, he isn't completely unfamiliar with hybrids either. The fact that he's introduced as a smart character makes it so funny that the idea that Denji and Power come up with is to try and outsmart him. To be fair though, they aren't the brightest, and they assume because Kishibe likes to drink, he might not be all there. It's a pretty decent assumption. Here's the real kicker though. The day before the attack on Katana Man, Kishibe informs them of what will be happening the next day and what will happen if they fail. Denji responds by saying, "Because you made me stronger, now I can kill more devils. And if I do that, I got a date with Makima." And the only panel before the scene changes is of a solemn-looking Kishibe. This was very telling from a character who rarely has shown emotion up until this point. The silence between the scene change is worth 1,000 words as we move into a conversation between Kishibe and Makima. Within this conversation comes some very important context though, as now we see that Kishibe is also questioning Makima's motives. Obviously something that Himeno learned from him, as they are the only two to have done this within the story. Specifically, Kishibe asks Makima if she knew about the ambush. Kishibe gives a speech basically amounting to, "As long as you're working for the betterment of humanity, I don't care what you do." In which Makima states that she wants to save as many people as possible, and if they succeed in the mission, Division 4 will have more freedoms. Whether you believe she wants to save humanity or not, you can check out the video I did on Makima to hear my opinion on the matter and get more information to form your own. But Kishibe simply points at her and calls her a liar, still being one of the only people unafraid to call Makima out to her face. And Makima just smiles. This was a conversation that took place over only the length of 2 pages, but provided so much context for the amount of information that Kishibe truly has. There's no confirmation here, but the wording in which Kishibe uses alludes to him knowing that Makima is something other than human. Whatever inhuman deeds you do, even if you kill my pet dogs, as long as you're on humanity's side, I'll look the other way. Very peculiar indeed. The next point to look at here in regards to Kishibe's apparent infinite knowledge comes at the end of the Bomb Girl arc. Kishibe tells Aki a story about a Soviet fairy tale which involves essentially a secret room within the Soviet military that is used to train, brainwash, and experiment on children. Also informing Aki that it wasn't a fairy tale, and Reyes was one of these children. Even if it isn't information regarding Makima, Kishibe seems to be aware of it. This shouldn't come as a surprise, as Kishibe is known as the strongest devil hunter and probably one of the oldest, meaning he probably has access to a wealth of knowledge beyond what your normal devil hunter would have. And then comes one of the most important details pertaining to how much Kishibe actually knows as he meets up with an old friend, Quan Chi. Within their particular conversation, Kishibe shows a particular understanding of how Makima's powers work. Keeping up the average conversation, sounding like it's only 2 friends catching up, he pulls out a notepad and shows it to Quan Chi as they continue to talk. Quan Chi tells a story about a reporter that she was fond of until finding out the truth about her. The message of this story being that ignorance is bliss and that Kishibe should be a good dog and keep his collar on. It honestly seems like every conversation that Kishibe has alludes to such important context when it comes down to what's really happening behind the scenes within Chainsaw Man. The first note that Makima is listening shows that Kishibe is aware that Makima is able to listen through some supernatural means. He may not be aware of how, but he knows it's possible. The third note in regards to killing Makima means that he is in fact aware that Makima is a threat to humanity, hence him calling her a liar. Which makes it a very bold move that he would tell her that straight to her face. Or, it truly shows how much he's aware of. Like the fact that Makima has an enormous ego. She wouldn't consider him alone a threat, therefore not worth killing because of his awareness. He knows that Makima believes herself to be invincible. Does Kishibe know the full scope of her invincibility though? That's something we'll find out later. Quan Chi, on the other hand, shows some kindness towards her former friend, meaning that she is also aware of what Makima is aware of. Being ignorant in the situation would keep Kishibe safe, but little does Quan Chi know, Kishibe's awareness is probably the only thing that keeps him from being controlled by Makima. With the reveal that Quan Chi is also a hybrid though, it opens up some questions, such as, how long has she been a hybrid? Regardless of that, we can assume that Kishibe knew this, and it's how he knew so much about how Denji's body worked. Now we enter the Control Devil arc where the big reveal happens, as well as the assault on Makima led by the one and only Kishibe. And this time, Kishibe came with a plan. To summon the Hell Devil to kill Makima. A plan that absolutely would have worked if it wasn't for Denji. Here we are able to see the extent of Kishibe's knowledge. It appears that he was fully aware that Makima was a devil. He just didn't know specifically what she was, nor what Denji had inside him. The only 2 bits of information that he hasn't seemed fully aware of throughout the entire series. But of course, Kishibe is still a normal human, fully affected by amnesia in regards to the things that Chainsaw Man has eaten. At the end of this confrontation, and the one between Chainsaw Man and Makima, Kishibe is waiting for Denji to wake up outside of a dumpster, now fully aware that their only chance to take Makima down relies on Denji. That brings us to the final bit of information, Kishibe and Nayuta. The fact that he knew another Control Devil was discovered in another country and was able to take her to put in Denji's care is astonishing. We saw how tightly countries held pieces of the Gun Devil, so it couldn't have been an easy task to retrieve the new Control Devil. I wonder how he did this, and if we'll ever find out. That, however, brings us to the end of part 1 and everything that we know about Kishibe. In the end, Kishibe has a vast amount of knowledge, as well as keen instincts. Whether his knowledge on Makima was something he knew or was chalked up to instincts is something we don't know. And probably something we will never know unless Fujimoto ever decides to create a spin-off for him, which is absolutely something I would be interested in reading. So if Fujimoto happens to see this video, please make it happen. I'm sure I'm not the only one who would love to read that. Kishibe honestly turned out to be one of the most interesting characters for me because he has knowledge the reader doesn't, and he's constantly alluding to that fact, which in turn shrouds him in mystery. This making you more interested in his character and wanting to know more. I hope that we'll see him sometime within part 2. I know Denji could definitely use his help with everything that is unfolding. That's all for this video on who I'd consider the smartest character in Chainsaw Man. Next up, to fit the season, we're going to talk about Germany's own Santa Claus. On that note though, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to tap that like button and subscribe. Otherwise, peace.